All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh Juice, an indie game podcast where we talk about anything and everything indie games, and we usually review one, too. And we have one this week. I am one of your hosts, Tommy Fresh, and joined as always, it is
Matty Juice. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Tommy, good to be back on the podcast talking about indie games. And we've got some secrets of Grindea that we'll be chatting about today. That is the main squeeze.
It is the main
I'm excited to
squeeze.
talk about it.
It sure is. It sure is. We got a great episode. I can't wait to talk about this game. We're kind of in the Balatro hangover right now, right? You know, we have like a real banger. We thought we were going to review a different game. It didn't come out. We will probably review it down the road. I don't want to put it on blast, but we were like, all right, Secrets of Grindea. I had heard some stuff about this game. It was in early access for a long time, I think, and it finally made its release. So I thought we thought that this might be a good one to kind of like approach after like a double certified fresh juice. Will this be that? We don't know. We don't know how we feel about this game yet, but we're gonna find out. Now, Matt, how was your week?
Yeah, other than the fact I am a little under the weather, so I'll be muting to cough throughout the show. So sorry if any of it leaks through. But other than that, I had a good weekend. You know, we went to a golf simulator for one of our buddies' birthdays, which was fun. Always cool going to those types of places. And then I actually played golf on Sunday. It was soaking wet, but it was a good time. The weather was nice. It was just like, just obviously soaked from all the rain that we're getting. And we've got some more rain like this entire week right now. So today was a pretty depressing day weather-wise. But yeah, other than that, though, just been playing some games, hanging out and trying to get ready for the show. But what about you, Tommy? How's everything going?
Everything's going well. Obviously I did that virtual golf thing too. It's getting so frustrating. I hate virtual golf. I'm realizing. I'm like, I play my best golf when I'm under the trees, like really, and can actually formulate like shots. But
Yeah.
like in a virtual world, it does not compute. And but that's all right. It was good to celebrate our buddy's birthday. And it was
My
fun.
favorite thing is driving. Like
Oh,
because it's everything else is like complicated other than like just hitting the ball, start like teeing off. But yeah, I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, the spatial like awareness part of it is a little tough, but it was a good time. I helped my buddy move that day in the rain. That was brutal, but on Sunday it was pretty low key. Got to just hit the gym, and then I played some Flesh and Blood at my LGS, and then went to go see a movie, which will probably be in my rec room at the end of the show. So we'll be talking about that. And yesterday I just worked a lot, and man, and now I'm here talking about video games, and there's nothing better. What do you
Hell
think?
yeah.
Should we get to some news?
Let's do it. Let's get to some news and kick it off with the top news every week is that we have a Discord, ladies and
ahead.
gentlemen. The Fresh Juice Discord. Make sure you join, become an official juice head. That's where you can submit listener questions. We're going to be doing tournaments in there. I know Goons is a big game that we want to be playing when that finally comes out. So make sure you join. It's linked in any description for anything that you're listening on right now. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever it is. It's linked down below. Join the Discord. We're talking about new games in there. A lot of great game recommendations, honestly, pop through there. Last week, Balatro. That was a game recommendation from Capolo. Double certified fresh juice. We probably would not really have known about that game, or at least not reviewed it on the show, if that didn't happen. So join the Discord, make some game recommendations, chat it up, and we'll all have a good time.
Yeah. And I just saw an announcement. An announcement. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. It's been a long day. I already did one podcast today. I'm on double podcast duty today, folks. This is the kind of commitment you get from the Fresh Juice podcast. But I saw the Goons Discord announced that it's coming really, really soon. So once it really comes, we're going to be playing a lot of goons in the Fresh Juice Discord. I cannot wait. I'll tell you that
Yeah.
much. But some other
Is that what
news.
they said, by the way? Did they say a date or did they just say it's
They did
coming
not
really, really
say.
soon?
Yeah, yeah. They were like, I can actually read the update. Let me bring it up
Okay.
here. You know, I pay attention to these things.
You do.
Rage cure,
You're on
rage
top
cure.
of it.
Some quick news. Currently going through the porting process. Yada yada yada. It's going well. Stay up to date with our socials to get some great news. Dot dot dot. Soon? Question mark. Like really soon? Question mark. A shush emoji, and then it says "Speak to you soon." Soon. Soon. So something's soon. I don't know. It's
Something.
I don't know what soon is. What if? Oh my god! What if it's a big PAX East release?
Oh, that would be awesome.
That'd be
Because we're
really.
going to PAX East.
Sure are. We sure
And
we
that's
were.
another piece of news, right? If anyone's going to PAX, wants to meet up, say what's up, maybe even get a little, little orange stress ball thing here. Feel free, let us know in the Discord, tweet at us. We'll be at PAX East on Friday and Sunday this year. So if
Yeah.
you're going those days, check us out.
Or if you're just in Boston on Saturday, we're gonna be just partying it up. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll see. um, but yeah, excited for PAX, which is coming up really soon. But we do have some unfortunate news. I mean, it looks like it's going to be resolved, but Balatro, the game we played last week, which we both really loved, was removed from several digital stores due to mistaken ratings change. So, obviously, the game has images of gambling because it's a poker game, but in some countries, apparently, that was not the case. What's the beat on this, Matt?
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting one. And honestly, I think I started trying to think of like how many other games could fall into this category of, there's so many games that we've played that have like they have a loot crate system or like some reference to gambling, like in The Witcher or like, just anything that's referencing gambling. Like where's the line kind of drawn here? And yeah, hopefully this gets resolved soon. If it's not resolved already, I didn't see an update about this. Now, Balatro, it remains available on PC platforms. I think this mainly affected console release for Balatro across, a few digital storefronts. So hopefully, this gets resolved. Basically, the rating had jumped from 3+ to 18+, which obviously limits their audience by a ton of people. Clearly, this is not an issue. This is what they're saying. It's not an issue with the stores themselves, but apparently it was an overnight change by the ratings board without any advance warning. And apparently, the Balatro team it already confirmed from the ratings board that their rating was totally fine. So this kind of blindsided them,
Mm-hmm.
which is really just shitty to see at the end of the day. And hopefully, it gets resolved pretty quickly. But I just it just is so confusing to me. Like clearly, the game is poker related. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you were going through the rating process, they said back in October. So few months before the game even released, um, you know, did you really think it wasn't related to poker at all? Like it's called Balatro as well. You
Yeah.
can Google that as we did, and you can see the relation to the Joker and the Jesters. So, yeah, just a shitty kind of situation, but hopefully it gets resolved soon.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I think it's one of those situations. Almost reminds me. We talked about this, I think, last week about Dead Cells. I don't know if this press is going to help Balatro, one of the two. But that being said, I do think that the fact that this game has been so popular probably is leading towards a swift, uh, like fix for here. I think I was looking at the platform. I think it was just like mostly eShop was still having an issue in other countries like Nintendo eShop, but
Yeah.
hopefully it's all resolved. But the game is certainly taking the world by storm. I saw on their Twitter. Are you familiar with the game Pacific Drive?
Yes. Yep.
So Pacific Drive posted a video of like gameplay, and they're like, "Oh, it's important during Pacific Drive sometimes to stop and play a round of Balatro." And the character goes into a like a cop car and starts playing Balatro on the cop car like laptop, which is pretty sweet.
Oh wow, that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
awesome. Like
yeah.
actually, like is that like something you can do in that game? Did
I
it look
don't
like
think
or
so. I
okay.
mean, they said isn't native to Pacific Drive headset OS, but you can find it on PS and or PC and
Oh,
consoles
okay.
now. So it's a nice little
Gotcha.
like cross promotion, which is pretty fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is a it's a phenomenon. I think like we're gonna look back on that game and be like, this might be a huge turning point in those types of card games and what you can do with them. And so uh,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. And not to like harp on Balatro for the rest of every episode. I'm still playing it, so I'm just
Yeah.
like it's fresh in the mind. But we do want to talk about Secrets of Grindea here in the main squeeze. Main squeeze when we talk about and review a game. It is Secrets of Grandea is a kind of like old school action RPG, right? You kind of look back at it, almost has vibes of Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy in a way, but it's action RPG, so it's not turn based. So you're kind of running around attacking things. It has a light story to it. You have some character customization, very old school graphics, 32-bit or something like that. And it's interesting, and I want to talk about it because
Yeah.
because it is a game, and I enjoyed it. Actually, I enjoyed the gameplay here, so I'm a big fan of those old school kind of RPG esque games. But I love action RPG, right? Like where you get to actually slash around with your sword and stuff like that. Now, the cool thing about this is you get to kind of grind. Natures of the name here, Secrets of Grindea. So like you get to grind through the enemies. They reappear very quickly, and they're dropping like loot, currency, stuff like that. Crafting materials. Now, this is something that we've talked about before. Like everybody's adding crafting. This didn't feel that intense in terms of the crafting. It's more like here's some stuff like you can just like start to build like other weapons or items or something like that. Not imperative to like the story or anything like that. It's more of like this is how you can build your build for your character to go through this game. And on top of that, has a neat system where it reminds me of Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, right? So you have a chance for your enemy to drop a card. And if they drop a card, it's basically something you could select to get like a static bonus to your character. And I saw this in Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, where like basically the same thing. Every time you beat an enemy, there was a chance that it would drop its soul, and you could use its soul as like a weapon or a buff to your character. And I always really like that because it gives you an additional kind of motivation to just grind against enemies that isn't just loot. You almost want to grind until you get like the special bonus that it's going to give you, and then you don't really have to worry about that enemy anymore, and then you can kind of like almost progress to the other enemies as you're going through the game. And if you want to skip them and wait till later to go get their bonuses, or perhaps like you're like, oh man, I wonder what that bonus was. I wonder if it would help me for this like certain part of the game. I can go back and like grind against these enemies. So I kind of like the gameplay loop here. It's fun. It's lighthearted. It doesn't feel too serious. You can have like a pet, which is cool. There's like a lot of things that they're doing right here, and controls are very simple. And yeah, I mean that's my review of the gameplay. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, no, I agree. I had a great time with the gameplay for this game. Like you mentioned, old school RPG, Zelda vibes. I was even getting like some Pokemon kind of vibes. Just obviously it's not turn based, but just in terms of like exploring the towns, talking with people, kind of just getting those vibes of Pokemon a bit. And then yeah, I am a big fan of like just open world kind of games where you are trying to grind for specific items. I know like I'm a big fan of obviously like the Souls games, so that's something that you do in the Souls games as well. Is you're obviously trying to you might kill the same enemy a few times, hoping he drops something that you've been looking for. So I really enjoyed that about this game. And then you can also play up to four-player co-op, which is really cool. So I only played solo. I think you only played solo as
Mhm.
well, most likely. And this was actually kind of I was getting like pokey MMO sort of vibes from it. For people that have not played that, it's essentially like it's essentially old school Pokemon, but an MMO. I think it's like PokeMMO.com. Somehow still active. Nintendo seems to be fine with it for some reason, but that is a lot of fun. And I actually would love to play this with like up to four people, and just see what that experience is like. It's all about kind of going on adventure, getting treasures and, using those treasures to make your character better, whether it's through the skill tree, through weapons, whatever that is. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed the overall gameplay. I will say I did start with like keyboard, and you're not really using the mouse here. You're kind of just using your arrow keys to run around, and then you have like keys for abilities and to access your inventory. So I used that for quite a while when I was playing, and then I was like, you know what, like I kept hitting the wrong buttons. So I was like, let me try to use controller. Like I don't know if controller's going to work with a game like this. For some reason, I was kind of thinking it wouldn't, and it does. They have a whole different kind of system where basically on keyboard, I'm hitting like WASD, ZXC, all those kind of buttons on the left side of the keyboard to use my abilities to attack, to block, all that sort of stuff. But then when you plug a controller in, it turns into kind of a wheel of items where your X A B X Y is kind of the default, and then you can hold left trigger or right trigger, and then A B X Y changes based on whether you're holding those or not. So that was kind of cool, and I actually found it to be a lot easier to play when I was using
Mhm.
controller. And especially just like I'm not used to like using the excuse me, the arrow keys to like move my character. I'm very used to like using WASD. So that was just a thing for me with the gameplay side that like I just found it way easier to use controller. I'm sure if I gave keyboard a little bit more time, I would really get used to it. And I'm sure there's a lot of other games that use that similar kind of control scheme on the keyboard.
Mhm.
But for me, that was the easiest thing. And then something else I really liked about the gameplay is that they have a story mode, which is we're mostly going to be talking about that today. But they also have an arcade mode, which I did dabble in a little bit. They recommend doing the story mode first, so I didn't dive into the arcade mode too deep. But it is a roguelike mode, which is really cool. So you basically have like a little companion in the story and the arcade mode, but in the arcade mode, you have a companion that holds an unlimited amount of inventory. So you can, you essentially go on runs of different floors, and if you die, you have to start over with a new character. But you can save some of those upgrades for the new character, similar to any other sort of roguelite mode, obviously. So I thought that was really cool. I wasn't really sure what like an arcade mode was. I was kind of thinking it might have been like a horde kind of shooter sort of arcade mode where, I just have waves of enemies coming at me. But the fact that it was a roguelite mode that also did have a little bit of story elements thrown into it, I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, overall, I did enjoy, the kind of onboarding process for the gameplay, learning how to do everything, and then just adventuring in the game. Like I felt like I was actually adventuring and discovering new things, which is really cool. I feel like sometimes with these sort of old school retro RPGs. I either feel like I haven't really been taught everything, so it's like it just becomes frustrating, or I just feel like the world isn't really interesting enough for me to go on these adventures. But this did both of those things, I thought, really well. And I do want to play more of this game. I put in a few hours, and I definitely want to play some more. It is a question, though. I don't know if if you switch to, like, let's say we did multiplayer, I think I would have to create a new character. So that's
Mhm.
also something I think you have to, because you have to decide whether it's single or multiplayer at the beginning. So that would be something that would be kind of a deterrent, I guess, for me wanting to play multiplayer. But regardless, I do think, this game is $15. Like, the gameplay was a lot more than what I was thinking it would be for a game that was $15. So yeah, just overall, I really enjoyed it, and can't wait to play more.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. I actually only played on keyboard. I did try a controller, but I think my controller didn't work with it. I have a
Okay.
Switch Pro controller over here, but maybe a Xbox controller or something like that would have worked better. I'm not sure. I'll have to try it out again, but I didn't mind the keyboard as much, so it was totally
Yeah.
fine now. What was your take on the story? Because this one actually has a story. So it's not always a given that we have story in an indie game.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the story in this one, at first I was like, all right, like, I'm not a huge story guy generally, especially with games that are all about, like, going on adventures, collecting treasure. They have multiplayer elements, but I actually found the story to be enjoyable in this one. So you kind of start out. You get a magic bag from your dad, and this bag has, like, it talks. It has an attitude about everything, but essentially it's gonna guide you to where the treasure is because the bag wants to have treasure. So I thought that the overall, like, in the story, there's a comedic tone to it. I feel like we say that a lot about these indie games nowadays. Like, it's rare we find a game that's like super serious. Even like something like the Cub that we played a few weeks ago, like, is kind of a more serious topic, but it always had this kind of humorous overtone to it. So this game definitely has humor in the dialogue. It kind of has like some of those tropes of like the queen of your kind of kingdom is like a jerk,
Yeah.
and she's very rude. And your dad works in the lab of the kind of kingdom, almost like it was kind of reminding me of like Born of Bread. We
Yeah.
played that game, and like the your dad, Papa, well, I forget his name, Papa Bread or whatever his name was. He worked in like the castle, for the kingdom. So your dad works in kind of the lab, and they study all the treasures and the just the things that people collect and bring in. And that this is where it kind of reminded me of Pokemon as well, is that like you're trying to be like a master collector or whatever they call it. So it's kind of like, you want to be a Pokemon trainer, right? So that's kind of the beginning of the story, right? Is like you need to be able to be qualified to be a collector or a master collector, whatever they call it. So you kind of have to go into this arena and do a few different things in the arena, and then you end up, being called a collector. And then you can kind of go out into the world, just like with Pokemon. You're a Pokemon trainer. You can go out in the world and train Pokemon. So that now you're going to go out and collect things and bring them back and use them to upgrade everything. So that's kind of like the start of the story. And yeah, just overall, I did it. I have enjoyed it so far. There's been like some interesting elements. I know, like, I was in like a temple, and there's a bunch of lore in the temple of kind of like these experiments that have like failed, and these experiments that, like, you're just kind of reading all these entry logs as you're kind of going through this temple, and as you're reading them, it's basically telling you about the bosses that you're about to face. And then when you go face the boss, it's actually another artifact similar to your bag. So this one is like an amulet. The first one that I came across, at least, that like he is also, they all have attitudes, it seems like, and they want the artifacts to essentially be in control of the humans. So it's kind of got that, like, we've seen kind of stories similar to that, but it is funny, like, to see, like, a bag and an amulet like arguing with each other, as you're playing. And then there's also, I just got to a part earlier today where there's like a fae that comes to the castle, and it's like a little fairy essentially, and so there's all these different kind of races, I guess, that are in the world, So you'll be able to explore all of those. And then probably one of like the funniest parts in my opinion in the game is that you have a nemesis similar to like in Pokemon, where they actually they've stolen stuff from me before. I've had to fight them, which I don't really remember happening in Pokemon too much. It's kind of just more of a dialogue sort of nemesis, but this one is actually they take action against you. So I enjoyed that with the story as well. So there's definitely a good amount of layers, I would say, with the story for this game, and I'm excited to see kind of how it unfolds. Haven't gotten through the whole thing yet, but overall, I was pleased with the story. But what about you, Tom?
Yeah, I immediately was sold on it as soon as Bag started talking. Right, so you're the character of Bag, who suggestively wants things inside of him. I mean, like that is a little bit much. No, but the overall like childlike kind of vibe here, it feels very like this would have been a Game Boy Advance game that was given to me 20 years ago, and I would have loved the hell out of it. Right, like this is like, it's super childlike. It's silly. It's not too heavy. Like you said, we don't get a lot of heavy games. I mean, Cub was heavier, but this is not. This is the opposite of Cub.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the dialogue between the different characters too, and the silly tropes of like, oh, your character doesn't say much, huh? Like the old Link kind of thing, and
Yeah.
I like that, and there's a lot of familiarity here, and it feels very comforting, and it shows that the developer, which I don't know if we mentioned, is Pixel Ferrets, which is a great name for a developer.
Yeah.
Obviously, really cared, and I think I mentioned it was in early access for a while. I think like 3 years or something like that.
In development for 13 years.
Yeah.
Early access for 9.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, jeez.
Crazy.
Which is crazy, and like, there's a conversation that Maddie and I have together about early access games and whether we should review them. Now, this is not this is officially out now, right? But we kind of think like, is it worth it? It's not the full version of the game. Will it ever even come out of early access? We ask ourselves those questions. And this game right here, Secrets of Grindea, is a great example of it's good to wait for the actual release, right? Because we get to see the fully realized thing here. And the story is probably one of the things, and the overall lore and flavor of this game is one of the things that really proves that. I think that there's a lot of depth here. They really cared about writing dialogue, making it feel the same throughout the whole game, and giving those little things where you just find little lore here and there, and giving these characters so much personality, even the inanimate ones,
Yeah.
which is just great. And I like it, and the familiarity that I'm talking about here is like we see a lot of the same tropes, but they're used purposefully. I think it feels to me like hey, we know this is a trope, we want to use it because we like that trope. This is why we're making this game. The bag having a personality and being your kind of like companion in this game is Navi from Ocarina of Time, right? Like this is the same kind of thing that we see over and over again with these action RPGs or adventure games that we've all grown to love, and I think they really nailed it out of the park with the flavor of this game, and it's further supported though by the aesthetics, which I think are quite like beautiful, simple, but then you start looking at the backgrounds and you're just like, wow, this game looks great. They like you're on these like platforms, like a floating world, at least to start off with, right? And you can just see the other like landscapes out in the distance as you're walking through, and then you have these really cute little pixelated like sprites of enemies that you got to deal with, and they're really well done, and the animations of the way they attack, and it makes it really easy to understand how you're supposed to attack or defend with your shield. And yeah, I really loved the character design here, especially in the like this. I don't know if you call them cutscenes, but like when the text box come up and the classic like almost JRPG like characters are on the screen, they're talking to each other. Even that design's great. It didn't feel too and don't take any offense to this. Didn't feel too weeby, which sometimes it just comes out in these games were just like a little too weeby. No, it felt like a nice balance of a lot of different inspiration there, and I really like the fluidity of combat through both the gameplay but also the way it looked. It made it very clear, where you had to go, how you had to defeat these enemies, especially the bosses or the bigger enemies that you would come across. So big fan of the visuals here. I think the amount of work they put into this game is obviously really showing here.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like you said, it's kind of these, it's like SNES like style sprites.
Mm-hmm.
It's pixelated, but it has so much depth. Like it's very rich. Both in like the color and just like the depth of kind of just all the art and kind of the foreground, the background, character design, everything has just so much care that's been put into it. And then even you get some great like designs when it comes to like the abilities and the weapons. Like I one of the things I did early on was I found like a tree stump that wanted me to collect 20 carrots. So I went around, I killed a bunch of rabbits, took their carrots from them, and I guess it looked like I put all the carrots on top of the tree stump, and then all of a sudden I had a carrot sword that I was able to pick up. And like that's what I've been using because it was better than the sword that they gave me. And I just thought that was awesome. Like that's not something that they have to do. It's like a little kind of treat that they put into the game. And then the sword also looks cool. It's like I'm going around defeating ghosts and like monsters with a carrot. Very cool idea, and it kind of adds to that whimsical feel of the game. But then also just like the abilities that you get, like the skill tree to me, like it was seemed pretty in depth. You have kind of I think it was like 5 or 6 different trees that you can go through. Some of them are more on your abilities. Some of them are kind of your like passive abilities. So when you kind of have all the different elemental types, you got like earth abilities, fire abilities, ice abilities, electric abilities, and all of them, like just from a visual standpoint, looked great to me. I was mainly using the fire abilities, but I did dabble in the ice and in the electric abilities. Didn't really use any of the earth abilities, but it's probably something I'll have to get around to. But I just thought overall, like it was really satisfying to use them. Sometimes, we've played games before where like we go to use an ability and we're like, we thought this was gonna like it sounded so much cooler than what it actually ends up looking like. And I found like in this game, it lived up to like when I bought Fireball, I wanted it to look awesome, and it did look awesome. Or I bought something that was like an ice attack that had a bunch of spikes come up from the ground that slowed enemies down. I was able to see that in the game, and it was exactly what I kind of expected it to look like. So the abilities I thought were really great. And even the enemy designs, I love the way the enemies looked. Especially, you get into this area called like the Pumpkin Woods, and there's like evil pumpkins and like ghosts with lanterns that are flying around. These evil flowers that dig underground that come out and like whip you with their vines. Everything, it wasn't like they just kind of took cookie cutter enemies from like the first area that you were in and just kind of reskin them. Like they did have kind of unique abilities, which I thought was really great. And they just looked fantastic overall. Like there's just a lot of depth. There's like scarecrow enemies you come across. Just everything from the way the world was built to the way the enemies kind of integrated in that world from like an art standpoint. I just thought was overall really well done. Really, the only thing that I don't really think it's an issue with the art, but sometimes I just kind of felt like the text dialogue was like a little too big, and I was like, wow, I'm really like close to my screen here. Maybe I should be playing this on like a TV. And there are some settings where you can like change the zoom level, but I didn't really find that to like affect much. I don't know if maybe they're not working how they should be right now, or maybe the zoom settings are for something else and it's not related to like the text level, but or the text size. But that was one thing that I just, it kind of felt like, I have a 1440p monitor. Like it kind of felt like I wasn't playing at that resolution.
Hmm.
And there's no settings in the game that like allow you to change that, at least that I found. So that would be like the only small thing, but it doesn't affect the gameplay or anything really at all. And then just another small thing that I noticed was like sometimes, and this is I believe intentional, but just for the listeners to know, sometimes like enemies can be hidden by like the environment. Like I was fighting a few enemies, they went like behind a tree, and these were enemies that I needed to kill to progress a quest. And I didn't see them, so I just kind of ran by them. And when I came back, they luckily they had respawned at that point. But I realized that they could like hide behind trees, or I don't know if that's intentional that the enemies actually know to do that, but they just happen to wander over there. So sometimes there can be a little overlap with like the environment and where the enemies are, which I'm sure, like I said, is intentional from a gameplay standpoint. But it was just something I wasn't aware like could happen. I kind of thought that there were like more clear borders for where like the enemies could go. So yeah, that also added to like the complexity of some of the combat as well, which I enjoyed. But yeah, overall, like the art was killer. Really enjoyed it, and even like the boss designs, everything was like everything that I've fought against so far has been really great. You go into a boss room and they have like that big text that pops up. It's like it felt like a new challenger and like in like Super Smash. I was like, oh god, like they did that really well from an art standpoint. So yeah, overall, I love the art in this game.
Yeah, it's they do a really good job, and I think like the animations really are what like really stood out to me, right? Like I think they really nailed the vibe of the kind of old school SNES kind of look, almost Game Boy Advance. A lot of it was reminding me of like Game Boy Advance Legacy of Goku in a way. But the difference
Yeah,
between that and this game is in Legacy of Goku, this is what you get when you get a little bit of that top down like pixel stuff. You can't really tell where you're supposed to be hitting in Legacy of Goku, I remember. But like this made it a little bit like the hitboxes made a lot more sense, which was really nice. But and
yeah,
I want to get to the point where for me is one of the only places that didn't live up to the rest of the game, and I think that was the music, which I think was fine. The only problem is I found it to be a little cookie cutter. I think maybe I felt like it felt like this is maybe another attempt at kind of trying to be familiar, but it didn't feel as familiar and more just like, here it is. And there were also points where I don't personally like this in a lot of games where the music will cut out during certain parts of dialogue, especially with like pixel games. I can maybe see it if there's a little bit more going on in like your bigger AAA games or something like that. But I didn't like that, but it would always come back and it was fine. But the music was serviceable, I think, but it didn't match the amount to me. It didn't match the amount of effort put into the rest of the game. But that being said, the sound effects were great. I think like everything there on the sound effects side was great. It just like it vibed with the whole game. Made sense when you saw something happen, made some noise. You're just like, oh, that's classic, action RPG, top down retro game noise right there. That's cool. But the music is where it kind of faltered for me, and I can't really put my nose on it or my finger on it. What am I putting on things? Um, but that's just kind of how I felt about the music, and maybe I think everything else being so good with the game made me kind of want a little bit more out of the music, and maybe just a little bit more inspiration. I think it felt a little bit uninspired. Where in a game that's full of inspiration, right? Like it didn't fit that same puzzle piece. But I'm interested to see if you felt the same way.
Yeah, no, definitely did. I found myself like when I was playing that I wasn't really like paying attention to the music much, and that was I think because it wasn't. I wrote down like I wanted it to be more epic, kind of the music, especially as I was, and maybe there's music I haven't heard yet in the game, but at least from what I've played, um, you know, I I kind of felt like the whole game, I love like games where you're going on like adventures, and I just kind of felt like, I was just thinking of like Lord of the Rings, and like obviously the music in that is amazing. And I just wanted something that could match like the excitement of the adventure for me in this game. And, not that the music was bad, like you said, it was just kind of like it almost just felt like a generic kind of music. And it also, I think the fact that it's trying to feel familiar kind of holds it back a bit. And maybe with it, they should have kind of gone into it. And I'm not a composer by any means, but they should have gone into it with maybe more of an original kind of thinking. But like I said, not a composer, not too sure. But the sound effects were great, definitely. And I do agree about like the audio cutting out. I actually put that in like the performance category because I wasn't sure if that was intentional or not.
Hmm.
But yeah, sometimes when the dialogue would come up, especially like during like a battle that's about to happen, you're kind of speaking to the person that you're about to fight, like the audio would just kind of cut out, the music would cut out, and I kind of felt like that almost kind of ruined the moment in a way where like I wanted it to be a little bit more epic, a little bit more intense, especially when I was talking with people that I was about to fight. So yeah, overall, like I don't think the music holds the game back entirely, but it's just nothing to kind of write home about.
Yeah, certainly, and I think maybe what we were looking for, and now that I've heard what you said, and we kind of align, I think maybe we're looking for some like unique melody or something like that, some kind of like
Yeah,
motif that you kind of get from games, and like I don't want to use like AAA games as like a like a whatever, no, like a excuse or whatever, like a scapegoat here, but like um you look at Legend of Zelda, like do 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 do, like you almost want something that kind of sticks in your head, and that is part of the beauty of familiarity of like these old school games. I mean, I look at
yeah,
like maybe even Stardew Valley has a great score, right? That's a great
yeah,
indie game that you hear uh, that theme, you're like, oh, Stardew Valley, yes, et
yeah,
cetera, et cetera. So I think maybe that's what we were missing, and maybe we didn't get to the best parts of the music, but I think you got. This is something that like I think should be just what you have to do, especially with an adventure game of any kind of sort. Slam these players with your best shit first. like
yeah,
that is going to keep them playing. I played more Wizard with a Gun because of how good the music was right out the
yeah,
gate, right? Like so, it is what it is. That being all this being said, I do think the music was serviceable, but they really could have nailed it there. I think they really had a great opportunity. But you
yeah.
mentioned some performance. I don't know if that was part of the performance, the
The
music
audio,
cutting out, but like
yeah,
uh, if it was, it happened to me too. So I have to assume that that's probably not the case. I think it was probably a stylistic choice. But other than that, the game ran fine. It's not a heavy duty game on my part.
yeah, yeah. Same here. Yeah, ran really well. Actually, it kind of seems like a game that could even like run in your browser if you wanted it to.
Hmm.
Wasn't like a big download by any means. So, yeah. Other than that weird kind of audio thing that is probably now that we're talking through it, was an intentional thing. Yeah. Other than that, the game ran really well.
Yeah, yeah. Now let's
Yeah.
get to our ratings, Mister Juice over there. Our ratings are as follows: certified fresh juice. These are your Balachos of the world, the Norp apple logs. These are
Yeah.
your bangers. You got to steal. This is things more like the Cub, where a lot of it's good, Some of it's not the best. You got Get on Sale. I can't think of a good example for Get on Sale, but it's a game that it's got its qualities, but maybe it's a little bit overpriced, or maybe just not really worth it right now. Your Manager Special, it's like, okay, you got to be really into this genre of game, or get this on like a deep discount if you want to try it out. And then finally, Spoiled Milk, which nobody wants. I don't think we've really gotten any. Did we have any Spoiled Milks?
No, we've had 3 manager specials. I'm looking right now. Well, I've had 4, but you've had 3. Yeah, no, wait, no, we did have. You had a spoiled milk.
Oh,
Spoiled
yes,
milk.
I did. What was that game?
Just King.
Just King. Spoiled Milk. I hate that
Yes.
game. Get out of here. But do you want to give your rating first, or shall I? I forget who gave it first last time.
Go ahead. I think I might have done it for Belatra last week, so go for it.
I am giving this game, Secrets of Grindea, a high steal. And it was pretty close to a certified fresh use. I'm not gonna lie. This game is very good. Not even was. It still is. And I totally recommend it. It is a steal, especially at that price. You're getting a lot out of this game. And if you're a fan of these old school ARPGs, adventure games, anything like that, I would recommend it. It's really well thought out. It's a really well done game. Obviously, they spent a lot of time working on it. The only thing I'm going to discount it for is the music, and I do think that's an important thing, especially with this genre, that you have to nail. And that's the only thing that's preventing it from being a certified fresh juice. But that being said, it's a steal. It's a really good game. I would recommend this game wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I gave it a steal as well. I think it has so many great things going for it. And honestly, I was kind of surprised, like going into the game, knowing it's been in development for so long. Sometimes that is not a good thing.
Yeah.
There's just too many ideas going around. They just want to get something out because they've been working on it for so long, and the game ends up being too many things, too many cooks kind of situation. And this was definitely not that. I like I said earlier in the show, like I'm excited to play more of this game. If any of the juice heads pick it up, we could do some 4-player co-op in the Discord. I definitely think it would be a fun game to do that with. But yeah, it's really, I mean, it's $15 as well. It's like you're getting so much content. They put in so much love into this game over a decade of love into the game, and I just think it's absolutely worth it. And funny enough, like it just kind of makes me laugh because I was looking up things about the game because I was trying to figure out, like, oh, how do I find this? Like, I wasn't too sure like how to find it, and I'm finding like forum posts from like 2017 about the game, and I was like, oh my god, like people were talking about this, like people loved it. It seemed like even back then when it was like in early access, and it's just had, I think, a lot of love since it's been released, and I'm right there with it. Really, really did enjoy this game.
Yeah, well, there you have it, folks. Secrets of Grindea, definitely recommend. Two really good games back to back, and I think next week's going to be another banger too. I think we're doing pretty well. Doing pretty good over here at the Fresh Juice
Pretty
Podcast.
good.
Now
It's gonna be tough choosing the best game of March. We'll see what happens. But we got this game, next week's game. We'll see. PAX.
PAX, yeah. Oh yeah, PAX. We'll probably do for PAX. We'll probably just do a review of games we liked at PAX. Not even like ones we didn't like. We just wanted to highlight good ones that we played at PAX that we're excited about. I think that'd be a fun episode. Now, what else is really fun is joining the Fresh Juice Discord and submitting a listener question. That's such a cool thing to do. My God. And we have some listener questions here. There's 2 ways you could be submitting listener questions. Send it on all of our socials, any of our socials, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. It's all at Fresh Juice Pod on the Fresh Juice Discord. Oh, wait, and there's a secret third way. Be my fiance. She sent me one. That's a pretty cool thing. Now, the first one comes from Capolo, who's not my fiance, asks, Game Master audio volume, what percentage do you set it at after you launch the game for the first time? I like this question. I notoriously listen to loud music all the time. My eardrums are fucked. They're done. But for whatever reason, when I'm playing a video game, I crank that thing down. I'm like half. I got like 50% at least. At least. What about you?
Yeah, I actually don't really change it at all. The only time I do change it is if I find that it's too loud. I'll usually bump it down to like 80%.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the game as well. Obviously, sometimes like, you got the master volume, but sometimes like sound effects are way too loud. I'll adjust that. But like most of the time, yeah, I'm not really adjusting the game volume. Um, to be honest, and it could be because like I usually have my game volume like going through like a mixer,
Mm-hmm.
with this microphone. It has it built in, so it kind of like evens out the levels, I guess, or something like that. But yeah, I've never really been one to like. It's usually I usually I look at the display settings first, and then I change that sort of stuff, and then I just hop into the game. I like rarely even look at like the audio settings, but it's probably going to be not a good thing that I do that, but who knows? Whatever,
It's I mean, I know I have to do it because I will like be playing something and I won't mute it or anything like that. I'll put my headphones down on my office and then like or even like I'll be on like a Discord call or something like that and I'll go over to my kitchen, which is like like 10 yards away from here, and I hear my headphones from the office in the kitchen. I'm like, uh-oh. I got some bad hearing. So but great question, Capolo. Thank you so much. The notorious BIG over there. R Carp 11, my beloved, my betrothed, asked. Well, she prefaced it with this. You guys talk about like game of the year and stuff like that. What's going to be your game of the year? What are we excited for? Blah 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 blah. Are there any movies, albums, etc. you are excited about this year?
Let's see. Top of my head, I can't think of any movies. I'm trying to look at like a list of movies. I just can't think of like what is even coming out this year. But I will say, like for me, I'm a big J. Cole fan, so he's got another album coming out at I think at some point this year called The Fall Off. And he's been, his latest kind of work has really been at like his prime. I think a lot of people would say so. I'm really excited for that whenever that's coming out. But other than that, I can't really think of like a full album that I'm excited for. There's like a few singles and things like that that like I'm excited about. But um, and then movie wise, it's tough for me to even think about it. I'm sure you'll say something that like I'll be like, oh yeah, that does sound like I'm excited about that. But I've kind of been like off of like, for a bit there, it was like superhero related stuff because it was just like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens. But now, like, I'm not really like super into like watching that sort of stuff, unless it's just like kind of on my own time at home and we just got nothing else to watch. So, I will say I am excited to see Dune 2. I haven't seen Dune 2 yet. So I haven't seen Dune 1 yet, actually. We're going to probably watch Dune 1 and then go see Dune 2 or something like that. But I know that one's technically already out, but I guess that would be a movie that I'm excited to see.
Yeah, it might even be in my rec room. Holy smokes!
Oh,
Some stuff that I'm looking forward to this year. My favorite band, Trampled by Turtles, I believe will be releasing an album this year. I know they were in the studio. That's pretty exciting. I'm always excited for some new Trampled. Kings of Leon, I mentioned. I recommended their latest single. I think last week or the week before.
yeah.
Excited for that album as well. And in terms of movies that I'm like, oh, I'm excited to watch. I think the only one I can think of right now off the top of my head is Monkey Man, which is
What is that?
it looks awesome, dude. So it's Dev Patel,
Okay.
who was Slumdog Millionaire. He was in The
Yeah.
Green Knight, yada yada yada. It's his directorial debut, and he's starring in it, and it takes place in like India, and basically he becomes like some kind of vigilante John Wick kind of guy. It looks badass. I mean, I
Cool.
hope it's really good, but it looks pretty badass. And like Monkey Man's, I guess, like maybe one of the like local legends, and he wears like a monkey mask or something like that.
Gotcha.
It seems crazy, but also like a little funny. So we'll see. I'm excited for
Cool.
that. But yeah, thanks for the question, R Carp 11. Very very cool. That does bring us to the rec room. What do you have to recommend?
Yeah, so I am recommending a song here, and this is a song, and it's a, I guess, indie rock song. I don't even know. I guess that would be the genre. It's called "Don't Tell the Boys" by Petey. And for those of you who don't know Petey, because I did not know who this was, he is a popular TikToker. He's the guy. I don't even know. He's like he's the guy who makes videos where everyone in the video is him. That's the only way I can like describe him. If you see his face, Tom, I bet
Oh
you'll know
yeah,
who that
yeah,
is.
yeah. I know
And
who that is.
he's it like I don't really watch his videos on TikTok really, but he's got he makes music. He's like part of a band. I guess they're called Petey. But yeah, there's a song he has that I've been listening to for maybe like a year or so, and it popped up on my Spotify again today, and I was like, oh, this is a really good song. I'm gonna put it on the rec room. But yeah, it's called "Don't Tell the Boys." Really enjoy it. The music video is kind of weird for it, but yeah, I recommend it. Check it out. "Don't Tell the Boys" by Petey. I think there's some other good songs on that same album as well. But I've listened to "Don't Tell the Boys" the most, so I'm more confident kind of recommending that one.
Yeah, I never really enjoyed his TikToks, but I do know the song that you're talking about, and yeah, it's a good one. I to be honest, when you said I thought that I was, or you thought that, Jesus Christ,
That you would know who it was.
that I would know who it
Yeah.
was. When you said that he plays all of himself in his videos, I thought you were talking about that guy Sam. Where he kind of, which I do recommend his videos. This guy's like always sitting around the table talking to
Oh,
himself. He's like,
yeah.
"How you doing, pal?
Yeah.
I really like Blastoise. What do you like?" I mean, like
Yeah.
at first I didn't really get those videos, and then like I watched more of them, and then he started doing like really serious ones, and I was like, "It's kind of deep." I'm like getting a little
Yeah.
emotional watching this shit, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought you meant.
Yeah, no, yeah, I've seen that guy, and I always like because when he does those deep videos, I always picture him like he's in his house by himself, like just talking about like talking to no one when
Yeah.
when he's doing that. But yeah, no, he makes great videos as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's who I thought you were talking about, but I do know who the other person was. But
yeah.
PD, Don't Tell the Boys. My recommendation is Dune 2, Dune Part 2, I should say, because it is still from the first book. This movie was awesome. I liked it. I was like, that movie was epic. I walked out of the theater. I was like, that was epic. And as I've sat with the movie, I'm like, I really loved that. Like, I think it was a banger. Denis Villeneuve, the director, he's just incredible. He's directed some of my favorite movies already. So I enjoyed Dune Part 1. Dune Part 1 takes the first half of the book, which is a lot of world building, and it's the toughest part to read. You can see Dune right there on my bookshelf.
Oh, there it is.
If for the people watching on YouTube. And Dune Part 1's good, and you get to see a lot of the cooler characters, do their stuff. And then Dune Part 2, it makes a lot of sense that they did it in two parts. It's a very dense book. It's 2 3-hour movies. Like, obviously, they couldn't do that in one movie if they wanted to cover as much as they did, and they still had to cut some stuff. And which I think was the right choice based on what they cut, because things get weird. And I gotta say, Dune Part 2 was just so epic. Shot on location, a lot of practical effects. The sandworms look awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my fiance's listening to this. She didn't totally agree with me, but I think it was so sweet. And a lot of the acting was great. Wasn't a fan of Zendaya, although everybody else is pretty hype on her, so I don't know. But Javier Bardem stole the show, playing this character Stilgar, and the memes of his character have been like so good. And like that's why I want everybody to watch this movie so I can send people those memes. They're so good. But the movie is pretty awesome. I'm not an Austin Butler fan. Like I didn't like him as Elvis from what I saw, and it was like really cringe. But he played a really good villain in this movie. Dave Bautista's good. He's good in everything he does, I think. And just a great epic sci-fi film like that we don't get a lot of, and it was sick. I recommend it.
What about how was Timothy?
You know what? So if I didn't read the book, I wouldn't have liked him in the role.
Okay.
I would say that, but it actually makes so much sense. Like he embodies Paul Atreides like perfectly, because Paul Atreides is a little bit of a bitch. I mean, like he's just like he just is what he is, and kind of entitled and stuff like that. And Timothée Chalamet, whether it's acting or not, he nails that. So, but like he also really nailed his kind of character arc into what Paul Atreides becomes too, which was actually the more impressive thing. So I did like him in it. But yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I'd recommend watch Dune Part 1 first. I wish I rewatched Dune Part 1 before I watched this, but I just didn't have time. But it is what it is. Dune 2.
Yeah.
Dune.
Gonna have to check it out.
Dune. Two chicks at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's gonna do the show, folks.
Actually, also just speaking of Dune, because I know there's a Dune game coming out called Dune Awakening, and I guess because all the hype with the movie, I have seen. I guess some people have like played an early version of it, and they've said it's really good. So it's looking like Dune's going to be a pretty strong like entertainment franchise. If obviously it already is, but it could be even more than game. Like I mean, what else could Dune be? I don't know, but it seems like Dune's the hot item right now.
Funny enough, there are like 2 huge Dune board games that have come out in the past like 10 years. I think probably in conjunction with the first Dune. So Dune.
Dune, bro.
Dune, dude. And I mean, it is the 3rd time they've tried to make this story on screen. So this is the best one. The first one was really weird. Then the second one's on Sci-Fi Channel, and then this one is badass. But yeah, recommend it. But that's gonna do it for the show, folks.
Yeah.
This has been Fresh Juice. I am still one of your hosts, Tommy Fresh. You can find me on Twitter at FreshBloodPod. Talk mostly about Flesh and Blood, the other game that I play, and I have another podcast for called Fresh and Buds. This week I have Pro Tour winner Michael Fang coming on the show. That's pretty cool. And please follow us on Fresh Juice Pod everywhere and on anywhere all at once. And then Spotify. Actually, we should shout out Spotify. If you're a listener, give us a rating on Spotify because that helps us become a little bit more visible for people. It's a great free way to help the show. So, and where people find you.
Yeah, and you can also submit listener questions through Spotify. Which is wild. I know. I don't know if anyone has yet, but if anyone does, we're gonna give you a big old shout out for being the first person to do that. So, but yeah, if you want to find me outside the show at Matty Gorm on all the socials, GORM, and but mainly I've just been probably mostly active in the Fresh Juice Discord. So. Join that, and you can chat with both of us and the rest of the community, and we'll have a good time in there.
Yeah, and if you're beating Balatro runs, post them in the Discord so you can make Maddie feel bad about not beating it yet.
Yeah, listen, I gotta hop back on. I gotta beat the freaking deck and then prove it to everybody that I did. But yes, there's been a lot of people beating their decks in Balatro, and I need to get on it.
We're all card gamers. It's an unfair advantage. It's unfair advantage.
Yeah, but wait till the Elden Ring DLC comes out, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I'll be waiting. Thank you, everybody, and stay fresh, you juicehead.